And as the storm hammers the Carolinas, how people in our region are getting ready for what it may bring our way. Thank you for joining us on this Friday. I'm Jadhon. Good evening. We begin tonight with continuing coverage on former President George H.W. Bush's legacy. He died Friday at 94 years old. Good evening. I'm Jadhon with this special edition of 7 at 4 live from Danville on a clear, sunny afternoon. What a difference 24 hours makes. Where I'm standing now is the parking lot of the Heartline restaurant. This parking lot and Riverside Drive, which is right here beyond me, were covered yesterday with about knee-deep water. The motorcycles I actually can see down the street right now, so they are getting close here to the center of downtown Lexington and the Red Hen. Those riders are members of the group Bikers for Trump. We know 3 people in this area are dead, swept away by floodwaters, and the city, a lot of parts of the city covered in mud. You can see here, I'm standing in a parking lot off of Riverside Drive, and just mud left in this parking lot, dust and dirt. By the way, we are about 3 minutes away from Air Force One touching down in Lewisburg, West Virginia. We do have cameras there. We will have that for you as soon as we see that plane coming in for a landing. First, though, there are some protesters coming out wherever the president goes. Protesters seem to follow. Victoria Shirley has more on that. Victoria, what are you seeing? Is it a large protest or just a few folks? We're looking at some video of Trump when he was in Abingdon with the Trump digs coal message, really speaking to those workers who are in those coal mines every day and whose families have depended on it for generations. There is one road, it is the main drag, it goes right through town, and people were lined up in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia today, as he said, waiting for President Trump's arrival. He will be speaking at there they are, look at the folks out, and what a pretty day to be out. Of course, they have their coats on, it's a little chilly out there, but the sun is shining, and a chance to see the President of the United States. As Tim, you mentioned, the President is going to be talking about his tax reform, and it's a roundtable, so I would imagine he wants to hear from all of these folks. How is it working? Are you seeing a difference? What difference, if any, is it making in your everyday life? Tim Saunders, we'll be back with you. Take a look at this. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado had a guest this week. Definitely, this guest did not have a reservation. A bear caught on camera wandering through the lobby, just acting like he's right at home. You can see the bear standing on a coffee table at one point and walking by the front desk. Oh, there he is on the coffee table. Staff say the bear was only inside very briefly, and there were no guests around.
It can be whatever kind of material.
Hey, if you don't have one of those little things the gemologist uses, can you really tell?
Yeah.
No, you can tell.
Yeah,
guys,
I think you
if
can.
You're listening. What is it? Cut, clarity, carrot, and cash.
Cash. Yeah. See, Gene's a pro.
I'm excited though to learn, along with Caitlin. Looking forward to it. All right, thanks Logan and Sarah. In Danville today, dozens of people from all over the Commonwealth gathered to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today is the 50th anniversary of his death. Those who attended the special summit in Danville talked about how to carry out Dr. King's legacy, and most agree King's dream has not become reality, and there is still a lot of work to be done for civil rights. King events are also happening in Roanoke today. WDBJ7's Bianca Holman joins us live from downtown. Bianca, how is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference recognizing King's legacy?
And that's an event sponsored by Belmont Baptist.
And it looks like the weather is kind of cooperating. I know at least it stopped raining. It's clear out there. Is it kind of windy though?
It is slightly windy, but not stopping the show here.
All right, Bianca Holman in downtown Roanoke, thank you so much. Time now to talk about our weather and head over to Chief Meteorologist Brent Watts. Brent, it's crazy because it was so cloudy out earlier today, and right now the skies are just crystal clear, blue skies outside.
Total sunshine, Gene. I was trying to find us somewhere really, really warm, and I thought we'd check out the Bahamas. This is the Nassau cruise port where the cruise ships are coming in. Wintry-like weather back in by Saturday.
And you're showing us spring break in the Bahamas.
I'm just trying
as
to
we're
give
here in Roanoke.
Just trying to get you there mentally.
Yeah, thank you. We're trying. Thanks, Brent, I think. Good evening, I'm Jadhon live here on 7 at 4 from Danville, where I'm standing right along Riverside Drive on a clear sunny afternoon. What a difference from yesterday. It looks like just a typical Friday afternoon with tons of traffic on Riverside Drive. at a quick glance. If you look a little bit closer, though, you can see the dust left behind, the orange cones where there are some rough, rocky areas, and the mud alongside Riverside Drive, all left from flooding. Knee-deep water covered this entire road yesterday at about this time. There were a lot of swift water rescues, a lot of people brought to safety. There were also a lot of creeks that flooded. Along Arnett Boulevard, one creek went over its banks, and a lot of roads around Danville, I can tell you, are still closed right now. In fact, our crew got stuck trying to go from point A to point B here in Danville, and we ran into detours and roadblocks. WDBJ7's Ashley Ann is along Arnett Boulevard. Ashley, I understand that that is where some roads are also blocked this afternoon.
Jean, back to you.
All right, Ashley Ann, thank you for that vantage point. One of the vantage points that is just spectacular is when you take a look at the video that came from Air 7 this morning. Brent Watts has been talking all along about how once the rain stops, the river continues to rise. And you can see that the Dan River certainly is very high right now and was this morning. This is high above Danville and the Dan River as Air 7 soared above this area early this morning.
This is WDBJ 7.
In my 24-year history, this is the worst storm we've had.
Now at 6, historic flooding leaves parts of our region underwater and claims lives.
We hope that the number of fatalities due to the storm will not increase.
Tonight, stories of survival and heroism when every second counted.
He was able to grab my hand and pull me.
And the latest on cleanup as crews assess the damage. This special edition of WDBJ 7 at 6 starts right now. Good evening, live from Danville, I'm Jean Jadhon. As the sun is setting on this Friday night on what has been a devastating week here in Danville, I'll tell you one thing, the restaurants in Lexington will likely be busy tonight because the Bikers for Trump group has told me that they plan to stay in Lexington to support local businesses, shops, restaurants, and then stay in local hotels and continue on to Natural Bridge, Luray Cavern, some of the local sites. There are supporters for the Red Hen here tonight as well. We spoke with one of those supporters who is here from Maryland. Here's what she had to say.
There's freedom of speech in this country, and she was practicing that. And she was also protesting against the Ms. Huckabee Sanders' complicitness in many heinous acts that have been perpetrated.
A supporter of the Red Hen here tonight, and there have been supporters leaving flowers and notes at the Red Hen all week long as well. Tonight, though, it is the Bikers for Trump who I see coming right into Main Street and this Main Street area, heading up the street toward us right now. In fact, you'll probably see some of them going behind me as the crowd erupts into cheers. Let me just kind of let you watch what's going on here for a moment. Bikers for Trump. They told me they had a ride scheduled and in the works all along. And then they tell me that the Red Hen incident was a straw that broke the camel's back and they decided to bring the ride here to Lexington. We're going to toss it back to Tim in the studio for more of today's news. Tim, this rally continues tonight. We wanted to hear from the tree sitters ourselves. So WDBJ7's Joe DeShiel climbed to the top of Peters Mountain.
With a sharp in the next few days.
It seems like it would be very cold up there. You said that they said they're fairly comfortable. How difficult was it to get to that location on foot?
She's been getting all prepped up as we've been going through the day. She knows who's going to be coming down that parade route.
I do know who's going to be. A lot of people are going to be in that parade. Robin, you'll be out there.
Yep.
WDBJ7 hometown station crew. And I've been a little bit stressed. Like, what am I supposed to wear? What should I wear? Are we going to need rain jackets, ponchos?
Everything.
Brent, one of those the hand warmers. What do you think? You know what, Logan? A lot of people don't realize, you do because you've been there. Yeah. The Blarney Stone, I thought it's just a rock and you walk up and you kiss the rock and you're done. No, you have to climb more than 100 stairs through a castle and then you have to, tight spaces, and then you have to lean way back to kiss it. Take a look. An update tonight on the Southwest Virginia native who was the first in the world to have a full facial transplant. We first met Richard Norris in 2014, 2 years after he underwent surgery that would change his life. It was called a face transplant miracle. Tonight, how Richard is doing, where he's living, and why he needs another medical miracle.
How does it feel to be walking around and just blending in?
Feeling normal. That's all Richard Norris ever really wanted, but it took years for him to feel that way. At age 22, as Richard reached for a gun from a cabinet, it went off. His mom remembers.
The gun went off and everything. I was standing about 3 feet from him.
Richard survived the accident, but was left severely disfigured. He lived as a recluse for 15 years, only going out at night.
He just shut the world out. He didn't have no hope.
Until he met a surgeon who would change his life, and Richard became a candidate for the world's first full facial transplant.
When dealing with patients, you're very honest with them. And you tell them, we've not done this. It's never been performed, and we haven't even done anything close to it.
It took months to find a donor, and then the call came. A 21-year-old hit by a van in Baltimore had been declared brain dead. Josh Aversano's parents made the decision to donate.
I thought, oh my gosh, their worst day was our best day. And what do you say to somebody like that?
This is Richard Norris before the surgery in 2012. This is him 2 months later. And this is Richard at the family's home in Hillsville when we first met him 2 years after that. The Henry County native was learning to eat again, brush his teeth again, and learning how to speak again.
The red ball bounced down the road.
We also followed Richard to New York City for one of his many doctor's appointments.
Give me a big smile.
Now 4 years later, we're catching up with Richard again, but this time to the south in Louisiana, where he described the surgery.
Transplanted the cheekbones, the jawbones, all of the bone structure down here, including the teeth, transplanted part of the tongue, all of the skin tissues in here, all the way down through here.
The surgery, Richard says,
it's pretty much given my life back.
It's also given him something he thought he'd never find.
When I lived back in Hillsville and I was living as a recluse, I just felt like I'd never find love.
But he has. Melanie Solis had seen Richard on a network television documentary and was one of thousands who sent him a message.
I was just really inspired, and I had to write him and tell him that I thought he was awesome.
A few months later, Richard replied.
It said, thank you for your kind words. Something short, sweet back, take care.
But their conversation continued.
We just talked and never stopped.
The two found they had a lot in common, their love of dogs and their strong faith. After a long-distance relationship, Richard moved to Louisiana to be with Melanie.
We go to the movies, we go to the lakefront, we go for walks.
Their life was going well until one day.
It wasn't something that I was ready to hear.
This is the kidney here.
Dr. Sean Roberts is a kidney specialist in New Orleans.
Since 2016, his kidney function has steadily declined and gone down. And I would assume that later this year, at some point, he will need either a kidney transplant or will need to go on dialysis of some type.
The anti-rejection medicine Richard takes is hurting his kidneys. He now needs a kidney transplant.
I get tired real easy. I feel run down a whole lot.
So far, Melanie has been tested and cannot donate. Here in Henry County, Richard's father, brother, and sister have all been ruled out as kidney donors. One person, though, who has not been tested yet, his mom, Sandra.
I think God's blessed him.
Yeah. Sandra Norris is going through the process of getting tested. If she's a match,
then I'm giving him my kidney. No question. As soon as they can do it.
For now, Richard is continuing his work counseling others who suffered traumatic facial injuries. And he waits. The guy who's overcome obstacles most of us could never imagine is facing yet another.
I was given a gift from And I was given a gift from a brave young man and a very brave family. And I carry his legacy with me every day. And I need to pay that and pay it forward.